going to talk about Imran Khan. Alexander, Mr. Sachs, let's get rolling. I have all the information for Jeffery Sachs to follow him in the description box down below, and it will be available as a pinned comment as well. The Center for Sustainable Development, Columbia University. Let's get rolling. Hello to everyone. Hello to our moderators. Alexander, Professor Sachs, let's talk.
Indeed, let's talk. And I'm going to suggest that we start with Imran Khan, because obviously John Bolton is an important person, but this is an ongoing crisis in Pakistan. Pakistan, a very important country, a large country, a country with a lot of economic potential, also a major nuclear power, a military power of some significance, a country with a long-standing history of tension with India, an ally historically of the United States, an ally historically of China as well. So it's a complex country. Lots of things come together, and it is going through a major political crisis. And this political crisis dates back to recent events when the elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, a man widely supported in Pakistan itself, a person who, by the way, the Pakistani community in London overwhelmingly supports. I know quite a lot of members from that community, people who've been very angry with the way in which he was removed from office and who went into protested, and people who were not interested in politics at that time. There are now moves to try to remove him from the political scene. He's been the target of lots of prosecutions, and he's now facing a prison sentence as well. And I think, Professor Sachs, that you actually are personally acquainted with Imran Khan, and perhaps you can give us some of your thoughts about this ongoing crisis and what it means.
Yeah, first, thanks so much. First of all, he's in solitary confinement right now. His life is at risk. He, as you said, was targeted as in an assassination attempt. He's a superb person, first of all. Very smart, very decent, very brave. I'm extremely fortunate to know him. And of course, I've been watching with great fear and trepidation all these months. When he was removed from power a few months ago, he immediately said, of course, this is the U.S. doing. And then the MSM, the mainstream media in the West, either ignored that or said, you see how flaky this is. I am on regular communication with him, and he knew what he was talking about. It was not just making some statement, and it all came out last week. It came out through the continued wonderful work of The Intercept, to which we owe an enormous amount in the last couple of years, because The Intercept is investigative reporting, telling us things that absolutely the New York Times would never say, never cover, show no interest in, and disguise. And The Intercept keeps telling the truth. And what they released was a memo, a cable, that was leaked by a Pakistani senior military official that described how the Pakistani government was threatened by the United States. Get rid of this guy, basically. This was the gist of it. The gist of it was, we are very unhappy with the prime minister, and things will go badly for your country if he continues, but things could go much better if something else happened. And this message was reported as an ambassador is supposed to do, reported who said what, how this conversation went down back to Islamabad. And sure enough, he was thrown out of power. And I know more of what's said, not with the same documentary detail, about bribery to vote against Imran Khan, because he's by far Pakistan's most popular politician. He's like not only enormously in the diaspora, but inside the country. So bringing him down is not an easy thing. It takes an organized effort. And that organized effort was made in response to the U.S. threats. And this is a typical U.S. regime change operation, which creates so many problems all over the world. And we see it vividly here. And when it happens, you know, in the mainstream U.S., no question is asked. Nobody cares. No one says a word, no coverage, because that's normal. You're just supposed to turn your head the other way if the U.S. brings down governments in this place or that place. Well, that's normal business. And this is what we need to understand right now. First, because Pakistan is important, because Imran Khan is important, because we're talking about a nuclear power, for heaven's sake, that is in a very unstable region, because now it is exposed that the United States was not only a party to this, but an instigator to this regime change. You'd expect something from the U.S. government, not a peep right now. And this is, unfortunately, how all of this works. And I would say, gentlemen, if I may, though it's obvious to you, and I'm sure obvious to your listenership, it's this kind of thing which brings us to the war in Ukraine and to so many other conflicts, because this is not some extraordinary event. This is the normal stupidity and arrogance of the United States, which completely abandoned diplomacy decades ago and believes that the way to foreign policy is regime change. And, you know, other countries don't like that. They don't want their regime changed. They don't want their neighbor's regime changed at the U.S. behest. But we're addicted to it in the U.S. security state. And this is the source of the problem. And, you know, one thing that I think is just worth us reflecting on, and I would encourage people to read, there's a wonderful book by a very, very smart young scholar in the United States, Lindsay O'Rourke, who's an assistant professor at Boston College, who tracked meticulously all of the U.S. regime change operations from 1947 to 1989. In other words, the Cold War regime change operations, 70 of them, and 64 of them covert. So because she had the benefit of space and time, some of things had been declassified, so she could really provide that evidence. And it's basically 64 covert operations in little over 40 years, so 1.5 per year, and ending one after another in failure, disaster, destabilization, civil war, assassinations, ongoing. And that's just documentary evidence. The book is beautifully written, Covert Regime Change 2017. And we need to bring that up to date because, of course, Yanukovych's overthrow in February 2014, which is the start of this war, is on the updated list. And now we have Imran Khan on the updated list. And until the United States learns to stop this rather bad behavior and turn back to diplomacy, this is an extraordinarily dangerous world. I don't have to say, I mean, that's a little repetitive, but a little obvious and trite, but we're making the world so dangerous by secretly overthrowing governments.
Absolutely. I mean, I find it astonishing that the United States should tell people in Pakistan that overthrowing Imran Khan, the most popular politician in Pakistan, is going to make the situation in Pakistan better. I mean, it's manifestly going to make it worse. Now,
one of the interesting things about this very scholarly account of these 64 covert operations, which is a lot, she goes through which ones worked, which ones didn't work, quote unquote, working in the sense of changing the regime. Most of them fail. I think 25 of the 64 succeed, if I remember the precise number. But then she says, so what happens after those 25? And most of those are complete disasters afterwards. Not that the U.S. gets any policy that it wants. Instead, the country falls into civil war or into deep chronic violence or into coups and further assassinations and so forth. So none of it works, but they keep trying.
It's very strange. It's very depressing and very strange. Can I just make a few quick observations? As I said, there is a very, very large Pakistani community in London, with which I'm very familiar with. Now, the interesting thing about Imran Khan's support is that it extends right across the social spectrum within that community. And I believe that is true in Pakistan itself. So you have secular-minded Pakistanis who support him. You also have deeply religious Pakistanis who support him also. As far as they were concerned, he was their elected prime minister. He is seen as somebody who is fundamentally honest. He appeared to represent a change, a hope for a better Pakistan in the future. And the fact that he was removed basically feels to them as if the future of their country, the hope for their country, has been taken from them. And that is what I have heard without exception from all of these people. And I've spoken to many. The second point I wanted to say is that without exception, before these documents appeared, they all were sure that the United States had a role. I mean, it was something that they didn't just, assume, they took it for granted. It wasn't a rumor, it wasn't anything of that kind. They could already, because they followed politics in Pakistan, they could see that it was happening. And of course, they are outraged. They are furious that the future of their country, as they see it, is being taken from it by another country, by the United States. And I have no doubt that that is the sentiment in Pakistan as well. So this is a wrong policy from every point of view. It's trying to do something covertly when everybody in the country knows that it is being done, and it is not strengthening the US position in Pakistan. It is undermining it.
And, two things that I would add to that, which I agree with, of course, 1,000%. First, he's very smart and very serious as a leader. And one of the things that I've known about him for several years is he's constantly writing about information or asking about a study or what do you think of this report or what's going to happen to this part of the world economy. So he's absolutely serious of doing the right things. And second, of course, the stunning thing, what was his crime, so-called, that brought the U.S. wrath? It was that Imran Khan wanted to be friendly with the United States, but also with China, also with Russia. His whole message was, it's not us versus, we have good relations with everybody. That makes America hugely upset. You can't have good relations with everyone. That means you're against us. And the response, against you? I just said we have very good relations. No, but you're not against our enemies. No, I'm not against your enemies because we trade with them. We have normal relations. Well, then you can't be a friend with us. This is, of course, absolutely the mindset of the United States. You're with us or you're against us. And even being friendly is not enough. You have to be on our side because the whole message was you're not putting on the sanctions. You're not breaking relations. You're not doing all these things. Most of the world doesn't want to do it, but they sit, watching the United States behavior. It certainly doesn't win friends.